Bonnie, can you see from way down there in the corner?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'd be going, can you make it bigger? I couldn't do it. And you say you're not able to make it Friday. At that point, yeah. You only have like 2 times a year.
Are you able to speak? I just don't know if I did the right Jordan. Ultimate state. Maybe you weren't there.
Jordan's muted.
It escaped.
Hello, I'm trying to fix my background, but I will be right on cam.
Yeah, I can hear it now.
Hello, hello.
Oh, there she is. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, great.
Jordan, is it the right Jordan? Is it you?
It is me. Hello.
Nice. Yeah, that's her. I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Video then.
Let me know. Okay, I'd like to call to order the Community Mental Health of Ottawa County Performance and Quality Improvement Committee meeting for Monday, July 13th. As we always start our meeting, if we could please review our mission statement and vision statement for a few seconds here. With that in mind, I would like to entertain a motion to move item number 5, I believe, in new business to before our presentation due to time from the IBH group. So I would entertain a motion that we address that agenda and have that just before the ACT program overview.
You're talking about item J, item IBH partnership.
Yep.
What is that? 8 something?
It is 5 under new business.
I'll move the amended agenda.
Yep.
Support.
Any comments, questions about that? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No, motion passes. Okay. We will then move to approval of the amended agenda. I will accept a motion for that.
Support.
All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Let's move to our consent items. Suggest a motion by consent to approve the following item, the minutes of the May 13th, 2026 Performance and Quality Improvement Committee. Entertain a motion.
I'll move the approval. And support.
And support. Any questions about the minutes? No. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
No opposed? No. Motion passes. Let's introduce IBH for their presentation, if we could. Dr.
Yeah.
Mashir?
Yeah, so in your packet under attachment J, you notice that last week I sent out a, we'll call it a memo or a document. Now there's Jordan. That basically presents to the board and to our organization my intended desire to move IBH as a permanent part of our analysis and quality improvement process for Ottawa CMH. This doesn't replace what we currently have. It's not to say that we're not going to continue. I mean, Olivia's here all the time. It's not replacing our internal folks at all, but it's actually a way to make the statement that they're going to be a permanent part of our analysis and our outcome measurement development process. And in the document, I won't read it word for word. I think it's 3 pages. That's short for me, as you know. I give the purpose of the engagement, and it's strengthening our analytic vigor and accountability, improving outcomes, reporting on millage funding, which I'll talk about in a moment, and expanding capacity for data visualization and dashboarding. And really, it's important to me that we have a reputable, known, third-party relationship with people that can do studies for us and present the results in a way that helps us limit any apparent conflict of interest. Or simply put, gee, Dr. Brashears is saying this must be true, and he may have biases on certain things, or the staff at CMH. And so part of our analysis is to have IBH always with us to kind of help us with some key things. One of them really specifically is the millage. As we move forward, millage kind of evaluation, outcomes, those things, I think it's going to be very important that our BH, our analytics people here can help us with gathering the results, publishing the results, and helping us with our dashboard, so that anything we present has a third party in an objective way using state-of-the-art analysis to do that. As you remember, IBH has been part of us for a long time. One way or another, part of Ottawa County CMH for since 2008, believe it or not. Lynn utilized them for several projects when I had left the first time, when I was here. In fact, I think everyone on the screen, even Jordan, started here at Ottawa CMH at one point. We had an internship program at Grand Valley in their master's program in statistical analysis. And it was kind of formed here, and they've kind of grown since then, obviously, and gone nationwide in a lot of their services. But I wanted to let the committee know it's my intention to integrate them in an official way of part of our kind of analytics, outcome development, dashboard development, in addition to what we already have. Not a replacement, but an augmentation of it. And we already have an existing contract. And so it's just really defining the scope more. And that's what that document was meant to be. And so I asked Dr. Lubers, I said, hey, listen, could you bring the team in? Because we do have public that's listening too, and introduce the team and talk a little bit about IBH beyond the Ottawa County CMH relationship, so that you get a sense of who they are in addition to the projects that they've done for us. Now, before I have that done, two things. One, if you remember as a group, we've used them several times this year in any of our analysis when we were comparing certain data sets. People with enhanced health and safety needs, they're the ones that help with that report, demonstrating that that group is not a kind of outlier, but a distinct population of people that we are serving with distinct needs that have to be funded in a specific way. So they were helpful in us to do that. We also did the analysis on self-directed care for CLS and people not in self-directed care and CLS, some of the differences and what was authorized. That was an IBH collaboration. And so you can tell when we need an evaluation that has needs statistical rigor to kind of demonstrate, I want to use additional resources besides what we have. And they're just part of our family. But before I have Darren kind of talk about them a little bit, did anybody have questions on what I wrote here or in general? And I did reduce it to 3 pages. And you can see kind of like what we're trying to do: dashboard development, future projects, millage outcome measurement, and then the contract reports directly to me, but it's integrated with the entire leadership team. And we're going to be working on processes to determine when's the best time to use IBH, when do we do it internally, and when is it a combination of both for evaluation and outcome and metrics development. Darren was also a fidelity reviewer for IDDT, a specific evidence-based practice with substance use disorders and mental illness that we've had here forever. And he was a state reviewer of those programs as well, in addition to his function as the CEO of IBH. So I thought I'd give you a chance to get to know their team and what they've been up to besides Ottawa, and then answer any questions. Does that sound okay to the committee?
Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Lubers, I'm not going to introduce you, but feel free to introduce yourself and your team, and then we can talk a little bit about what you've been up to.
Yeah, that sounds great. And thanks for having us, everybody. Yeah, I kind of will always have this like big appreciation to Ottawa County, and that, like Dr. Brashears was indicating, we started the internship program there, this great kind of collaboration that we still have to this day. with Grand Valley State University and their statistics department. I remember Dr. Brashears came to me and he said, hey, there's this professor over at Grand Valley named Dr. Bob Downer, and he's
Downer.
interested in, and he is a brilliant statistician, just a wonderful person, and he just has such enthusiasm and just love for the internship program. And we ended up really developing this great collaborative relationship between Ottawa County and Grand Valley, where we would design projects that would be like so complicated, but had wonderful utility, where we'd combine things that I won't bore you with detail, but like survival models to show, for example, how long when a person comes into treatment at Ottawa County into the kids program until they have statistically significant and clinically significant gains. And so we were using these combinations of these stat models that had things like effect sizes and survival models and all of these things, to where we'd have to go to the department to validate, like, hey, is this, can you, we think this is logical, but please help us do another review of this. And so as time went on, IBH just kind of formed in terms of, we really found that there was a lot of utility to kind of taking my background, which was really, like Dr. Brashears alluded to, I was part of the original MFAST and really believed strongly in assessment models and access departments and utilization management and being able to use business statistics and really examine systems of change. My doctorate is actually in co-occurring substance use and mental health in terms of what my specific area of focus was. And so it has always been important to me to have good assessment, but be able to measure the outcomes associated with whatever is being examined. And so we have found generally over time that we're able to get fantastic results. It's just a matter of integrating well. The more you can integrate with a system and be kind of an insider but outsider simultaneously, the better you can achieve outcomes over time. And so we're, like I said, always be appreciative. But let me start, and I'll jump back a little bit more into IBH, but let's start with an introduction of my team. Like I mentioned, I'm the PhD psychologist on the team, but everybody else, they have, the Grand Valley Master's in Biostats degree. And so year one of the internship, which was, gosh, I don't even remember, Brittany, you would know. Brittany was the first intern that we had in our Ottawa County partnership. And so I'll let her introduce herself first. And then Jamie came after that and Jordan after that. And so we'll kind of go in that order.
Yes, so I'm Brittany Braidaway. Like Dr. Lubers mentioned, I was the first cohort to come through the internship program at CMHOC. And so worked under his mentorship, Dr. Brashears. I also worked under Greg as I supported utilization management. So Greg Hoffman, Rich Francisco. So over the years have supported in areas like utilization management, performance reporting, outcome assessment. We came back, I forget, a couple years ago and supported you all through your CCBHC quality measure reporting. So we started by doing an assessment of your CCBHC screening and assessment process. We provided certain recommendations on embedding, new assessments into your workflow. Supported also through the transition to PCE and really kind of piecing together the reporting requirements for CCBHC. So able to keep that continuity going and hit all your reporting requirements, which also support some of those quality CCBHC quality bonus payments that we should start to hear about real soon. We've kind of gone through and supported CCBHCs through the certification process. I know Dr. Lubers provided a little bit of his background on evidence-based practices. So we're supporting with just building some fidelity monitoring assessments, supporting you through those MyFast assessments, making sure you're ready, as well as the outcomes of those individuals served. I know Dr. Luber's also mentioned things like survival analysis. So we're looking, we have the opportunity to look at things like time until the first service or time until their first clinical service. So if you all have heard of MTM solutions, there's some just key performance indicators that they seek around no-show rates as well as just average wait times. So our goal is to minimize wait times, get individuals into services fast. There's just a lot of reporting requirements that come with being a CCBHC, like community needs assessment. So our group has some experience with those. And I think with that, I'll pass it on to Jamie. That'll be a good transition as she's helped organizations with network adequacy.
I got to make one quick comment first, though, that like just reminds me of something that Brittany was real instrumental in early on. So we were encouraged to apply when we were pretty early on in Ottawa County to go after this national award in outcome measurement, right? Because we were real big on that. And we had developed this system within Ottawa where we matched a screening tool to every like diagnostic category that people come in with, right? So we trained everybody and built this very elaborate outcome system. And Brittany and we had a programmer named Christy at the time who assisted with that. So we ended up getting the runner-up national award for this innovation and technology award. But here was the funny part of it. It's funny now because I can laugh at it, but I was pretty upset at the time. So they fly us down to Florida. We present on this whole outcome thing, like, yay, 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 right? But then what was funny about it is the EMR system that hosted it, they pretty much built it into their EMR. So it ended up being something that was like pretty cool and innovative, but we didn't really end up, being able to, do much with it after that because it was such a good idea that they took it. So anyway,
Yeah.
but that was like a really cool, innovative project with assessment and outcomes that really worked beautifully for a little while. So Jamie, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm Jamie Davis. I was actually Jamie Brandon when I started at Ottawa, which was in 2013, and then have a lot of the similar stuff like Brittany and Dr. Luber said. So I won't really jump in, to any of that. Just some additional things that, we've been a part of was presented at the opioid conference, actually in New York City. So that was pretty cool to be able to do the needs assessments. We've worked on quite a few of those, work with a 15 county region in North Carolina to assess network adequacy in their network, the MCO level. So kind of seeing that transition, in North Carolina as well, watch them grow, but also watch them go from really just focusing on behavioral health to now managing both the physical health and behavioral health side. So that's been very interesting to see. Worked on the provider side of things, which I think is really interesting and brings a good perspective from our team. But we've also worked a lot with the CMH system and also like the LRE, so different regions, MCOs in North Carolina. So that's just a little bit of the additional pieces that I can add, and I'll let Jordan kind of introduce herself.
Hello, I'm Jordan Van Dyne. I was OMS and I worked with Ottawa many years ago now. I think that was 2017 maybe 18 that I was there working with you guys. So yeah, and I mean kind of just to elaborate on what Brittany and Jamie spoke about, I've supported with grant management and reporting, getting into the actual SPARS system, trying to understand all those documents that they put out. So, being really involved in the reporting, like I said. I also worked with you with the MIMBIS projects as you were transitioning from your EMR system. So definitely heavily involved in Ottawa. And Ottawa's also near to my heart because I grew up in Zealand. So it's just a little tidbit.
Thank you.
Well, and thanks everybody. That's really nice to kind of put your little like Ottawa memories in place here, but then still being able to be involved in like super important ways. But one of the other things I wanted to kind of bring up in general, and this was actually something I had learned from Dr. Bashir's way back when, and Paul Duff was there at the time too, if I recall, but way back when we were at CEI. He taught me a lot about systems theory because my job at the time was to go to all of our network of 8 different counties and, bring in evidence-based practices and do the training and get people up to high fidelity. So at the time, what I was doing was I was going down to Case Western in Ohio, because Ohio was ahead of Michigan at the time in terms of their ability to kind of like actualize the evidence-based practices. But, long story short, I remember what he told me about was like, you really need to sometimes think about going up a level in different systems. And so, like, if you're not having like the kind of model development that you want or awareness of it, step it up to the state level or step it up to the federal level. And why I always appreciate that is like worked very well for me in particular and for IBH, because I remember at times thinking like, oh, this is such a good idea. Why can't we get it to like lock in? And to his point, we do a lot of work with SAMHSA, and it doesn't get any better than SAMHSA because they are like the federal agency. And so a lot of times when we have ideas, we bring them, to a SAMHSA, or we, work with other federal things like Jamie mentioned, we were invited to the International Opioid Conference. So Michigan wasn't as interested, but the feds were. And so it was like really a cool thing to be able to like work at different levels within, like our areas of expertise. And so I think our favorite thing is to see outcomes strengthen and finding very automated and easy and clinician friendly ways to demonstrate like the great work that's being done in CMH systems. And so that's kind of what I think we take pride in is just being able to examine, but to be that third party or that external internal group that truly understands what's going on, where one is trying to get to, and then being able to find ways to actualize it. And so that's kind of like our motif.
Yeah, and IBH has always been a part of us. Lynn utilized them, and as we've utilized them since the beginning. But what has happened and where you've branched out, and how you've done the different levels really, for me, makes it a wise choice for us to continue the partnership because you understand the context. And that's very hard to find. So I'll let the committee ask them any questions you'd like to know that maybe you didn't know about them or you'd like to before we move on. But I wanted to give them an opportunity to expand on who they are, and kind of how they can add value to us.
Yeah, how large of a footprint do you have with other organizations? I mean, you have a big workload. It looks like you're dealing with national stuff, federal stuff. How do you manage the time around all that?
Well, that's a great question. Well, we have other people on the team too, but what
Sure.
you're looking at is the core team right now.
Right.
This is the core team of all of the individuals that have been with us for 10 plus years.
Mhm.
And so we have actually other master's level statisticians, but they're not quite to these guys' level of expertise yet.
Sure.
But how it works, like, so for example, yeah, you're right, we have a footprint, like we do work with some like Florida SAMHSA grants, we work on some others in Michigan. But like all of our work is sort of like fractional, whereas like the work that like I dedicate this entire team that's on the screen to Ottawa because A, they have a history with Ottawa, and B, they have the skill set that you guys need to move us forward. Like I ran into Keith, for example, which I'm very excited about this, when I was out there a month ago or so, and Brittany brought this up. Like some of the things that we build are somewhat automated. And what I brought up to Keith was that, for his ACT, IDDT, DBT, all the different EBPs, we have like fidelity models that we've already built in other places. Okay, like we built some of them like in OnPoint as an example. So what we do is we extract the data from your system and take as much of it to automate things so that the the burden on the clinician is less than it would have been like way back when I did that work a dozen years ago, let's say. So it's a way for us to be able to help you demonstrate fidelity to a model and outcomes by some of the things that we build, almost like a software. But it's sort of like, it's not, but it is, because it's sort of like, it's not like software to buy, but it's like processes that we've already designed and built with like code. So it makes it so that we can be very efficient because of the things that we have built in other places. And another example of that would be like some of the stuff we do in Florida, like there's dashboards that have been built that track all of their data and information. The feds love it because it shows their, kind of fidelity to the work, but we like it because then we're able to do outcomes like very efficiently. So great question, but we build as much as we can so that, and they all require tweaks. Like you don't build something and then have it like perfect. It tends to get better. But a lot of the work that we do was already done. You know what I mean? But I'm never satisfied with that. I always want the new, better thing. Um, but if that helps, A, we have a
Yep.
bigger team, B, we automate quite a
Yep.
bit.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Any other questions or?
I'll just give a shout out to Darren there, followed up here, Darren. So,
Hey, Paul.
I just wanted to say that, like, when we had worked together in the past, just how impressed that we were with the work that, I still get comments from MDHHS about the presentation that we had done when we were working with the ANSA tool, and the work that we were trying to do with that. So, they still reach out and compliment us on that presentation. I know Brittany did a lot of work in that. I believe Jamie was involved in that as well.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, and those were like really exciting projects because we were really trying to align and create like that, what do we call it, like an equity model.
Right.
And so it was just sort of like taking the combination of the best instruments, which would have been, to your point, the ANSA and the SIS, and then being able to align that with costing models. Because like one of my preferred models that I've just loved are the business profs out of Harvard, where they talk about costs and outcomes are the two critical things to measure per system improvement. So what Paul is referring to is like that's exactly what we did, but for the whole region to be able to look at costs and outcomes and quality of service delivery in the IDD system of care. And so I forgot about that state presentation because at first they were kind of like, whoa. And then they kind of like, oh, this is actually a good thing.
They said, no, is this that tool that Michael Brashears
That's
was
right.
complaining about?
That's exactly right. Because I was fighting on the other side. No tools.
Yeah.
I won that battle too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any other questions for
If
Darren?
I can make a
Yeah.
comment, I may be the only one here that on the board who remembers when you were here 10 or 12 years ago,
Yeah.
whenever it was, and appreciated at that time the contributions you made to our agency in helping us get statistics for improving our GF contributions.
That's right.
We have a similar battle now, as you are well aware. We have scarcity of Medicaid funding to meet our demands. And as an agency, we need to be as efficient as possible. We need to make those dollars go as far as possible, as fairly as possible to the people we serve. So I'm looking forward to you helping us get the data we need to understand what we're doing to justify to the state why we need more funding for our particular population.
And we love helping with that kind of work. In fact, the analysis that we assisted with that new level of care that Dr. Bashir's alluded to, that is like hands down a huge important discovery in terms of that there are responsibilities that, in my opinion, the state needs to kind of like step up and say, like, we're not providing an availability for this level of care, but they're also simultaneously not providing the funding for Ottawa County to do it. And it's enough people that it's a distinct new level of care. We can demonstrate that. You do it through assessment, you do it through costing models, level of care, and then so it's like it becomes like a set of proofs that I think we've already done a pretty good job providing, with evidence that there's an issue here that needs to be examined by the state. So that's back to take it to another level. and in this case, it's the state. And maybe the LRE as well. Let's keep at both levels, but some pressure on some of these things. But I appreciate that, because we definitely want to assist with, that whole efficiency and effectiveness research with your, any and all of your populations.
Thank you.
Thanks, Darren. Appreciate it. We look forward to our continued partnership. And I mean, if you want to, you guys can stay on for the rest of the meeting, but if not, we know that you guys are quite busy. You can sign on.
Yeah. Well, what do you think, Dr. Brashears? I mean, I'm happy to stay if you need me, but I know these guys are really busy. Like, how about if they
Oh,
signed
good.
off and I stay on? If
Yeah, you can, because later on you'd be interested to hear what I'm talking about that's related to some of the stuff you mentioned. But I think you can release your team for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate
Thank
you
you.
jumping on and
Thanks.
sharing.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Okay, so we'll move back to the agenda. We'll move into our first presentation, the ACT program overview by Keith and Rebecca.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
All right, so Rebecca and I just want to give you a short overview of who ACT serves, evidence-based practice, and just a few things about that, services provided, and just a few facts about the team here.
So thank you everyone for having us. Yeah. We are the team in our agency that serves the most acutely mentally ill population that exists within our public system. We are primarily a service that works through community mental health agencies. Many of our folks, I think about 80% right now, has a co-occurring substance use disorder as well. These are typically folks who have been in a lower level of care at some point, maybe an outpatient team, or they've been served by a provider in the community and have not necessarily done very well. They often have a lot of other existing problems like housing issues. They often have incarcerations, many hospitalizations, all that sort of thing. And the number 2 point on here, which is actually kind of probably an important thing, is that they're not always delighted to work with us. Go figure, right? And so a big part of what we do and part of the amazing team that we have here is building engagement with our folks, meeting them where they are, wherever that may be. Sometimes that's get out of my house. Sometimes I don't want to see you. But trying to find points where we can connect with them on a level that we can move our relationship forward into a place where hopefully at some point we can get them a little bit better.
Do you have an idea about like percentage about how many are on court orders?
Keith had that on that last one. Right now Keith did the statistics for this. So 60%, I would honestly think, and we might be a little bit higher than that right now, but I am very proud to report that we do serve a number of folks that we got on treatment orders originally, but who are now working with us voluntarily because we've done things that they seem to value at least a little bit. So.
But this is just a little bit about ACT being an evidence-based practice. Couple things I want to point out. All the services are provided by the ACT team rather than being, a case manager here and a therapist here. So the team provides all the services. The staff to client ratio is controlled by the state. It's 1 to 10. And there's no arbitrary time limit for how long somebody can be assigned to the team. So that means as long as someone meets criteria to be served by the ACT team, they will be served by that team. Some people, it's a shorter amount of time. Other people, it'll probably be most of their life just because that's the severity of their illness. in the intensity of service can vary within that. Right now, there are folks that ACT sees 7 days a week. Hopefully, we can move them to maybe seeing them 2 or 3 times a week. And then maybe if things keep on going well, maybe 1 time a week. As they get closer to discharge, to prepare them to be at a lower level of care, then maybe that will be moving them to every other week, just so they can get used to being seen less, because they don't need that higher intensity service anymore. But it is based completely on what the client needs. It's not based on what the team thinks is convenient, because it's not very fun going out on weekends. But I do know, and I've been there, that we go out on weekends, we see people and make sure that they have what they need.
And just to speak to the point here relating to the evidence-based practices, I'm very excited to hear what Dr. Lubers has available for us, because I have also been a MyFast lead reviewer for 9 years for this specific evidence-based practice. And I do a lot of MyFast fidelity around the state. And we are due this year for another MyFast visit, which I've been trying to set up. It's going to be sometime likely October or November. And one of the big kind of pain points with this has been trying to get that data specifically so that we can act on it. I can share it with the team and we can actually use it the way it's meant to be used to improve our practice. So I'm very excited to hear what they have.
Well, I can't wait to show that to you, by the way. It is like super exciting because it's efficient, and it reminds me of, like, back when Mark Lois was at the state, and he and I used to have discussions all the time about, like, we both were under the very strong opinion that CMHs do incredibly important work in these EBPs, but as a state, we just didn't have outcomes to demonstrate that. And so I am, like, convinced that, like, the automation of some of this to pull data from your EMR and pull data from different components of what you have, and then build in, some different outcome metrics, that this is going to make it more efficient for the clinical team, basically, to be able to do the work. Because I know the work is great. I mean, I've been all over the state, seeing these in action. And I know for sure Keith does a great job in Ottawa County. There's no doubt about that. I just want to help put a picture to that, like, tell the story with data and dashboards.
Sounds great.
How large is your team?
So right now we have myself. I am currently the only master's level therapist on the team, but I have two case managers that are bachelor's level. One of them is working on her master's right now. And then I have a RN. I have a peer substance use recovery coach. I have a medical assistant. I have a parapro who is also a certified personal trainer and nutritionist. I'm really proud of the holistic health stuff that we're doing. And then we have an administrative assistant as well. We have right now 2 full days of prescriber hours for our team as well. They see Dr. Frenswell Wednesdays and Thursdays. So social work, math, did I just count up to 8.5?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. So yeah, some of just facts about our team. One of the important aspects of ACT is that we do meet people where they are, both in terms of their stage of change and in terms of their physical location, wherever that may be. We're able to go to their homes. We're able to go to where they are when they don't have homes. Our team has a lot of very individualized knowledge about our clients, and can often find them in places I wouldn't have even looked. We do see them in the office for doctor's appointments, but I mentioned a little bit about some of our multidisciplinary skills that we have. I've been incredibly impressed to see how this team works towards holistic health goals. Our RN has been able to attend, I believe, all but maybe 2 of our consumers' primary care appointments with them this year. We have incredible coordination. I can't take credit for this because the staff that I have that I inherited from Keith is amazing. But incredible coordination with a whole host of specialty providers for a lot of these kinds of health outcomes. Yeah.
I have a question. How are you generally received by some of the systems that these folks bump into?
So there's a lot of those. And I think one of our strengths as a county, and as a CMH is that we have great liaisons with our local hospital. I came to this position from working on crisis prior to this. So I spent a lot of time at Holland and Zealand and some at North Ottawa Hospital. So we have really good relationships there. I also supervised the jail staff, clinical staff before. So I feel like we have a really good coordination with a lot of those agencies. We recently have been also trying to liaise a bit with some of our court people in the district court here in Holland and the public defender's office as well. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
And we're working on PCPs. It can be sometimes a struggle to get PCPs to look beyond maybe the mental illness or maybe sometimes the presentation. So I know that the RN and the MA both have been strong advocates for our clients when they're at those appointments.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I feel like that's an area that I'd love to be able to measure is the effective advocacy that my team has done on the part of our consumers with their medical providers. There are times when I have thought if we weren't at this appointment with this person, what would be different? And I can tell you it would be, yeah.
we're gonna go back a slide just so we can see maybe. What did you do to my clicker?
Oh, no.
It's broken.
You're gonna have to hit the button manually on the computer.
Yeah, if you're on the computer, can you go back?
You go back one. There we go.
Is that the right one?
Go click back up on the presentation. There you go. Now, Keith, is it working now?
Thanks, IT Anna.
That's right. So we elevated you to intermediate.
Yeah, intermediate IT.
Yeah.
So this is just a slide showing some of the services that ACT provides, and the arrow is connected to the case management, recovery coaching, community living supports, medication monitoring, psychiatric services and therapy. But that's a rectangle up in the top right corner. That's examples of what staff really do. So this is, they attend recovery meetings with the clients. They go to PCP appointments. They go to court hearings with clients. I don't know how many of us have been to court, but that can be a very scary thing. Even getting clients to go to court because you need to show up. Well, I don't want to. I'll go with you. Okay. All right. So then we're helping them navigate that legal system. Teach skills to keep up an apartment. We're trying to keep all of our clients living as independently in the community as possible. Sometimes they've never lived alone. They've never lived independently. I don't know how to keep up an apartment. We're going to be right there with you. We'll walk alongside you to, this is, need a cleaning schedule. All right, we're going to go to the grocery store. We're going to have a list. This is how you grocery shop. So it's doing those kinds of things to make sure that ACT clients can remain in the community. And then also to get out and enjoy their time in the community. Like Rebecca was mentioning, one of the staff has a personal training certification. She has been on top of folks to get out in the community to exercise. So she's been utilizing the parks, making sure that folks are aware of them, but also, well, let's start with a shorter hike, but then we can always push a little bit, and we're trying to work on that physical health as well.
She's coming back to the office real sweaty these days.
Yeah.
All right, so then in summary, ACT staff serve most severely and persistently mentally ill folks in our community. They are available 24/7, 365. ACT is an evidence-based practice used throughout the state. Most services are provided in the community, and ACT's job is to work with the clients to maintain their independence and remain in the community. Are there any questions?
Yeah.
Half the way.
So this is really intensive work, right? Very
It is,
intensive work.
it
And
is,
and it can be emotionally draining.
Oh, it can.
How do you all take care of yourselves and how do you maintain the level of connection in your staff to manage some very, very difficult situations?
Keeper question.
Oh, good.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I am extremely intentional about self-care. I think for myself, and I encourage for my team for it to be their highest priority at all times. I constantly tell them that I can't expect you to take care of yourselves better than I take care of myself, and I can't take care of any of our consumers better than I take care of myself. So I am a very rigorous exerciser. I am a rigorous traveler. I am a voracious student. I believe in prioritizing all of my own needs, and I encourage my team to do the same. I check in with them about that, and probably they would say I ride them a little bit hard on that. I think that there's a lot of protective factors against burnout that can be found in self-care. I also came back to an agency that I think really values our clinicians and has a really healthy clinical culture. I think that providing clinical supervision, receiving clinical supervision is a huge part of that. I don't keep things to myself that I think need to be discussed, and I encourage my team to do the same. And finally, I would say that evidence-based practices in and of themselves, when they're implemented per the Fidelity model, are a protective factor for clinicians. And the reason for that is because every day we get to come to work and we get to see the results that this evidence-based practice tells us we can get. And that's further incentive for us as well to do the practice the way it's meant to do. But, most of us didn't get into this business because we wanted to be yelled at on a daily basis by people who aren't happy to see us. We actually wanted to be able to see that we were making people's lives better. So I'm very intentional in our meetings about talking about our successes, measuring very incremental and small change, and being strength-based when we talk about our folks and about our staff as well.
I really appreciate that because, with that level of intensity, compassion fatigue can settle in pretty quickly if you're not doing this kind of thing. So I think it's really, really great to hear that you're very intentional about that.
Very much so.
Hear that.
I have a decent.
Can I bring up a quick thought?
Yeah.
Sure.
I would love, by the way, guys, to measure, this personal trainer and nutritional aspect that you're bringing into the fold. There's like new branches of psychiatry at Stanford and Harvard that are doing like incredible clinical trials showing the benefits for SPMI individuals that are increasing their exercise and nutritional intake into something, that's healthier. And so I love that you guys are doing that. And I love that that's innovative because it reminds me of years ago when we started to bring things like trauma into the EBPs. And at the time, it was sort of like, well, where's this coming from? And now it's mainstream. And I think what you're onto here should be like really integrated into these models. So I love that you're doing that. I love that you're doing that.
I would love to talk and connect further about that because when I'm seeing the staff, I'm going to brag about, her name is Heather. What I'm seeing her do, she's developing plans for our folks to work out, and they never cancel on her.
That's great.
I mean, yeah, so
That's great.
it's pretty fantastic. She's out at Riley Trails. She's doing disc golf with them. She's going to the our new community health center over here, doing all kinds of stuff. And it's whatever they want to do. So it's, there's some great consumer choice and individualization.
Other questions?
Question. We have some of our consumers who are the most severely impaired at the Robert Brown Center. Is that a place where you would engage with them?
It was in the past, definitely. Yeah, we really did value that resource. Crisis residential was, I mean, we still have access to it. It's a little bit more limited because we don't have it within the county now. But yeah, we did meet a lot of our folks there. Yeah. Yeah.
Are you specifically asking about individuals that are placed in crisis residential, or
Yeah.
the persons that are currently at the Robert Brown?
Well, both.
Yeah.
Only one person.
Yeah.
Yeah, that isn't one of our current people, but yeah. Yeah, before when it was a crisis residential, we used it a lot in lieu of hospitalization. Yeah.
I like the point about, like, Darren, you were referring to about how you're measuring success and things like that though too, and being able to tell the story. In my work life, I also really struggle with how you do that with this population. And I mean, because you try to do like general like successes, like reduce hospitalization rates and things like that. But for each individual, it's a different story about how you define success.
Right.
And I would really like to see how you guys are going to be able to capture that. With everybody, everybody has to kind of justify what it is that they do these days, because funding is tied to like success rates and supporting the services that we do. And so any way that you guys can do that, because there's no doubt that this is a really tough population. You guys do really great work with this. And so it'd be really nice to be able to see a way to be able to capture that really reflects the services that you guys are putting into place.
And it's not like we don't already have a lot of outcome measures, we
Right.
do. And obviously we work in a pretty statistically heavy, regulation heavy environment. So it's nice to have someone help with that, so it doesn't create an additional burden on the clinicians when we're trying to, say, provide therapy or crisis, so yeah, I agree.
Well, I want to thank you for your commitment and your dedication to this work. This is really up there. So thank you very much.
I feel
Appreciate
very
it.
privileged to be here. I really do. I'm very grateful to be doing this work. I never dread coming to work. So
That's awesome.
How long have you been in this position?
so I took a midlife gap year to finish my doctorate, and I came back last May. So May 2025, is that right?
Yep.
Before that, I was on crisis and then supervised crisis for 5 years.
That's great.
Yeah. Thank you for having
Good stuff,
us.
guys. Yeah,
Thank you.
appreciate it
Very much.
Good to see you.
You too.
Yeah, take care.
Take care. Don't be a stranger.
Thanks, Doc. Thanks, Keith.
Okay, we will move now to our standing updates, access and crisis utilization dashboard. Olivia?
Yeah, so we have a new way of showing you. That's why we're doing this. We'll do an abbreviated. So Olivia put together another way based on all the feedback and stuff to show you this information. And it's in your packet. And I thought that we would have her just walk through it. The rest of the material behind that are stuff that are informed in here. So just understanding this, and this is a preview. We'll have a discussion a little bit in a moment about something that might be forward facing in the future to the community, to the board at any time. So get rid of the smart device isn't so smart, I figured, So Olivia, you could walk them through this, because this is like, we've had different ways of looking at the same information, and this is our newest iteration.
Yeah, so previously this was 2 separate pages, last time we reviewed it. And what I did based on a lot of the feedback was just combine it all into one big page. And it really just tells the story of how people move through the access center. So when someone comes in for service, they call the access center, and they have a specific kind of 3-phase process they can work through depending on, how they interact with the consumer needs. And so what this is really showing is that 3-phase process and where people continue through and where people drop off and where they go. So looking at just kind of this overview summary.
Might be able to minimize Darren's face. We like looking at him, but he might hit the minus button. Hi, Doc.
So what this is doing is this is looking at through the months of May and June of 2026, how many people called the Access Center specifically to inquire about services. So there are 377. Overall, 176 or 47% of those calls were eligible for some type of service. And that can be broken down into 11% of those were by direct referral. So there's some pathways where they don't have to go through the whole three-phase process. They just go right into services.
Yeah, we know them or something like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or kind of the rapid readmission type of
Right.
process. And then 36% of those were by going through that entire three-phase process and having that final eligibility assessment. And so then going down here, this is showing those three phases. So 377 contact lab services. And this is showing you what happened to them. So 57% of those were eligible to move on to phase 2. 6% were eligible for that direct referral back into service. 23%, it was deemed that referral to some sort of external community resource. And then 17% were really the ones where no service was needed, such as maybe like a non-resident, they had the wrong number, something happened, you know, things like that where really it wasn't applicable.
Calling the health department.
Yeah, things like that. And so then moving on, we're looking at this green portion. Of that green portion, 202 completed the following phase, which would be the screening. And of that, about 92% were eligible to move on to phase 3, which is the final eligibility assessment. And the remainder were readmitted directly into CMHOC services. And so then again, continuing on to phase 3, we're looking at this green portion that were eligible for the final assessment. 141 of them completed it, of which 96% were eligible for our services. 4% were referred out, and then the final table breaks it down by population.
And we have other pages that drill down all the different phases by all the different populations. But I remember I've been wanting to see this progression from contact to.
So, question.
Yeah.
First graph, the
Yes.
blue, 23%, they go to navigator services,
That can be part of it.
navigator, or,
Yep.
or you just give them a referral, so.
Correct,
Okay.
correct. I know the Access Center does a lot of the warm handoffs. So
Yeah.
even if it's not necessarily like the Navigator program, we're gonna make sure that whatever external community resource, even referring back to like your primary care provider office,
Yeah,
making sure you're connected back there.
And with navigators, it's beyond pointing. It's
Right.
actually navigating them there and
Bringing-
going with them. Yeah.
The second question is that you have 3 distinct phases here. Do we know what average time between call and end of assessment is?
Mhm. Yeah, we collect statistics on that,
Okay,
which, the average time it gets from contact to determine eligibility to start of treatment.
start treatment, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, because state requires still 14 days for each,
Correct.
right?
So
From,
as long as you're within that window.
yeah, which
you're
is,
good.
which is too extreme anyway.
Right,
We
yeah,
can
you
even-
want to get it quicker.
So the question about the phase 2, the screening. So you're saying 100% of those that were at that screening either went into the next phase or they went directly into services. So nobody was denied at that point in time.
Not in that month, not in that time period.
Correct,
And
okay.
What I will say about the most recent months, looking at May and June, that's when they contacted for phase 1. So if someone came in and like June 30th, they could still be in that 3-phase process. So they have
True,
not maybe
yeah.
shown up yet in the
Yep,
final phases.
yep.
But that's why if I look at all the months since we went live, we have 5 that completed this full
4%.
screening
Okay.
that declined further
Yeah.
services.
Okay.
Okay,
And remember, beginning of my journey and with all of this was to answer the thing you all hear. No one gets into CMH.
right.
Yep.
I'm going, well, let's see about that. Right?
Yeah, and that's a big point that I've been trying to emphasize too, because I'd like to know what happened to those 5 people then too.
That's right.
Were they referred back to the community then, or they
Yep.
just didn't follow up with the service?
It could be either of those, but
Mhm.
we have other drill downs that categorize what happened. that
Yeah.
you'll be able to, as a board member, be able to go in when we're done with this whole project and answer those questions.
And the reason why I want that is to be able to defend that as
That's right.
well, because when people come to us, say we're being
Right.
turned away.
But for the general public, to the much they can understand it, we're trying to move to this visual. But you as board members and staff will have, once we have the dashboard complete, we'll be able to drill down and be able to sort out and ask all those questions with instructions. So what happened to the 5? Click on here and it'll be able to show you.
Yeah.
And it's important for us because we're one of the few access departments in the state that have navigators.
Mhm.
So it's important to know that decline means sometimes simply, we said you're eligible and they said, no, we don't want to come. And we sometimes get that,
Yeah.
especially family services.
We change our mind.
Yeah,
Do you want to highlight how those navigators are funded?
millage,
Thank you.
almost exclusively.
Yep.
We did throw a little bit of general fund last year in for reasons that we needed to, but it's almost 100% millage funded, the navigators.
Are they defined as MI navigators? Because you have the SUD navigators.
They navigate everybody.
So, okay.
DD, MI, AUTI, you name it, they're navigating.
I have a question on that slide. The middle category, you have 5 individuals who decline further services offered. Is that because we don't have appropriate services to offer them, or because the services we offered, they made a voluntary choice to decline those services? And would you call those dissatisfied people who weren't satisfied with what we offered?
We'll have to look. But that's a very valid point, why they decline.
Yeah.
Right? And if it is, I was wanting X, but you only offered me Y, that's one thing. If it's, no, we changed our mind. I know in some cases I'm aware of, not, we'll have to look into that, Tom. It's literally, we're okay, we're fine. You mean it's all that? And that usually is not the IDD population, just so you know, like they're not going, never mind. Right?
Well, but yet the next slide, we have 46 people who we said were eligible in IDD and 8 who were referred out.
Yes, they didn't
Was
meet the
referred
basic,
out,
yes.
we found a better match outside of our system
Mhm.
and it was agreeable to them? Or did we say, well, no, we declined to offer services to you, but here's another opportunity over here that you might use? I mean, was it voluntarily or involuntarily decided?
Yeah, so
That's a
we can-
category to look into.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, and I would say it probably is a case by case basis.
Yeah.
For example, I know one family that had engaged our system looking for a specific service placement
Mhm.
that was not necessarily appropriate.
Correct.
And I found out recently they've decided to retire to Florida and take
That's
their
right.
family member with them.
Yeah.
Now, you might say that's a case where we didn't meet their expectations or we couldn't, or maybe their expectations were unreasonable.
Yeah, and we get, in those examples, that's correctly, we'll get people that are like, yes, you're eligible for our screening.
Mhm.
You're eligible for services. Here's what we can offer you. And they go, no, but I wanted that. I wanted placement into Benjamin's Hope. Well, no, that's not what we're offering.
Mhm.
Well, forget it. We'll just go it alone, right? In an extreme example. But that does, and see, the dangerous thing is, and of course I have Dr. Luber's online too, and I'll let you know, we do have a cap of what he can do. Because he'll listen to these discussions and go, aha, we have another thing to do. So we have to prioritize it in the list with what we're doing. But really, it really is the type of service requested that we're not capturing yet. What did they say they wanted? And we get that in the access department all the time now. Hi, I'm here because I want housing.
Mhm.
Well, you met our screening, you're actually eligible for services. Here's what we can, and so I wrote down, we'll start looking into how to get into answering those nuances. So I think that'll be helpful.
And so, I mean, you triggered a thought. So that declined further services, could that be either that the individual declined, that they didn't want to follow through, or that the agency through the screening process determined that they weren't eligible?
No, it's
they were. So is there, like, through the screening process, are people, is it determined that they are not eligible for services through the screening? And
Yes,
so there's zero in that then?
correct.
And then the ones that are on the far right that like what tying into this is that people are offered a second opinion then as well. And then is there, I know that in second opinion, you can see that data, but can it be reflected in here that if they requested a second opinion, that they then were eligible for services?
We can look into that too. Yes,
Yes.
second opinion or local appeal. Yes, we can. Are we getting closer?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, yes,
All right.
yes, yes.
This is a journey,
Good.
right?
Yeah.
And, we'll never have a day where we have it perfectly right, but I want it
Getting-
good enough.
But it's a huge improvement for me. I mean,
Yes.
I- Yes, yes.
You see that? Boop,
Yeah,
boop, boop.
yeah,
Getting there.
uh-huh.
Okay,
Getting there.
good.
Because the other thing that I will say is I met with Carrie, our access director, last week to review this, because I wanted her input. And we spent a lot of time talking about people who dropped out in between the phases.
Yeah,
So they're eligible to move to the next phase,
Right.
but they never show up to the next
Yeah,
phase.
yeah, I would
And
imagine.
so we went through a lot of those individual cases to see basically where they went. And what I will say is that's not reflected here because it would make it far too busy, is there are other like documents, contact logs that the Access Center does that aren't reflected here. So if someone is eligible to move to another phase and they maybe don't show up, they don't answer back, there's a lot of recorded communications of trying to
Yes.
reach out, trying to figure out what's happening, what's going on. And also just the way that the data is set up in an episodic phase is if someone was initially eligible to go to phase 2 and they maybe don't show up, then maybe a couple months later they come back, they start back at phase 1
right.
because they're going for a whole new
Sure. Yeah.
contact. So
And
it
then-
also, you have cases like that that also account for that drop.
So where those little arrows are, there's a whole other set of data. Cause I'm, of course, when you said that, I'm like, oh goodness, that means those that didn't want to, dropped out before they get to screening,
Yep.
did they have any crisis contacts within 60 days?
Yep.
That's not where your head's going, so I'm anticipating, and that's where I would go. Because like, did something bad happen?
Yeah.
Okay,
So
great,
the little green arrows could have their whole other
Yes.
dashboard
yeah,
page.
we're getting there.
You can always just keep going.
But I look at this as, are we meeting our obligations as a system to get people in and serve them? And can we show that? And it can be forward facing, and we're getting closer and closer.
I think it's one of the biggest complaints that we hear out there is that people get turned away. And I just don't think it's accurate. It's just people
That's right.
not being informed of,
That's
and
right.
the more information that you have to be able to reflect what it is that you're doing here, I think that that's going to be really, really helpful
Yes.
in educating the community.
Okay, what's our next one? Because the crisis contacts is kind of a similar thing. That's what we haven't changed that much. That's there for your review. I'm not going to go too much into that. The trending is about the same. I will say that the 31% that was on the last thing is higher than kind of like where we've had our benchmark before. We were really around 20-something%, or I forget where we used to have it, historic trends. The 30% hospitalization rate is higher, for that time period. Again, we do double check all of our admissions. We do retrospective reviews. Did they actually meet criteria? Could have they been to crisis residential? Were they more appropriate for something else? And we're still having high confidence levels that all of those admissions are there. I will let you know from funding source, we're still seeing a dramatic increase in Healthy Michigan plan. Moderate folks served by the health plans that we've never met, requiring hospitalization that we have to pay for. And since June, it's now up to about $1.3 million in expenditures for a group that we have no active engagement before they get hospitalized. And that's a big systems issue that I'm highlighting it. As Luber says, I went up a level and up 2 levels to do, because that's an unfunded mandate.
And Michael, there's probably no way to capture, but the Medicaid health plan individuals that are showing up in crisis services, there's probably no way to capture. Did they try accessing services through the health plan, but it just wasn't available?
I will be talking about that in about 10 minutes, but
Okay.
yes,
Okay,
there is a way, kind of.
okay.
So we can go to the next, because you guys can read that if you have, that was just to keep our reporting on.
Yeah, So that's it for this dashboard. If there's
Beautiful. Beautiful.
And you can see I'm bringing in the big guns. You know. Yeah, now, let me launch this. So we've done a lot of emphasis as a board on me the last year and a half plus, almost 2 years, of who's coming and all that stuff, right? Equally important is, when do people leave? When are we done? Right? And this dashboard has been developed, and we've always had information, but we're putting together in a certain way. We're going to walk through it because I want the takeaway for the committee and those listening and the board to be, a big takeaway is, we're not like traditional behavioral health care in the private sector. Many of our folks will have treatment goals and objectives forever. Right. They have lifetime disorders that go in remission. Therapy doesn't equal cure. Therapy equals addressing the current phase of the illness, just like a healthcare condition like leukemia. It may go in remission, but it can show back up. That's who we serve. So understanding when people leave and why has to be put in that context. Because if you just look at treatment success as defined by treatment goals, you're going to look at this and go, boy, only a small percentage do that. Yes, by design. And so to me, the messaging also is to help continually educate when people leave our system, how they come back in rapid kind of readmission, but what this looks like, so we can improve upon our ability to hold people in treatment longer. So that's the background of why I said, let's get this started going too. And we've always had information on discharge for a whole thing. This is not new, but we're looking at it in a different way. All right, you can show them what we did.
Do you have different categories of like discharge, like
Yep.
what defining what success is, like completed?
You'll see it right now.
goals? Okay, all right.
That, remember I told you the anticipated Director Duff comments, make sure it's on the draft board. Yeah, we have many conversations. He's gonna want to know the specific,
which
right.
is,
And we think alike, so it's helpful.
well, and it's good. You
Yeah.
need to think about this.
Yeah.
So this is kind of our updated discharge summary dashboard since we went live with our new EMR system. So it's going to include any discharges since June 2025. And what I will say is this is just the first spec,
Yes.
because it doesn't include all of our discharges because of the way our EMR is set up. We have two different discharge pathways, one specifically for all of our SUD contracted providers, and the other basically for everybody else. So what you're seeing right now is pretty much everybody else. That includes all of our directly operated services. All of the CCBHC DCO is going to be included in here, and any of our contracted mental health providers. And really the system is just set up that way to allow for certain automations to happen. So this is representing everybody but those external SUD providers that we're contracted with. And that's going to be kind of the next phase, is figure out how to meaningfully combine everybody into one large service. But essentially, again, I always include an about phase. You don't have to read it. This is just kind of looking at that. But moving on now to our overview, once it loads a minute. So what we're looking at here, just kind of start up at the top. So what we can say from June of 2025 to June of 2026 is we've had 1,024 total agency discharges. Moving down across the page, this shows you by month, but it also breaks it down by planned versus unplanned.
Mm-hmm.
And then moving forward again, kind of what you were talking about, their discharges are rated by what their goals, how much of their treatment goals have been met, some all, none versus and not collected, but also by a satisfaction survey that's required to be included with each discharge. And that is consumer rated, so that's their responses to that.
And a lot of them don't select to do it.
Correct.
Because you'll see that most of them fall away and we can't reach them. Yeah.
So then before we get to discharge reason, just kind of, is there anything in this general area that anybody wants to comment on?
So go back up so we can see the top again. So 1,024 discharges, okay. And then there's some sorting capabilities we have up there.
And the discharge means that they've completely left services, right? They didn't transition from ACT to case management.
Correct.
This is not individual program discharges, this is total agency.
Separation.
Okay, so we can now move down and look at discharge reasons.
See the relations too.
So this on the left shows you the raw numbers, whereas this on the right shows you percentages.
Got it.
And then it's broken out by population. And so if we sort it just by, you know, the raw numbers or percentages, the number one reason for discharge is dropped out. And then other, I will say for other, we are working on being able to track further within that other category. The specific reasons are kind of themes that we typically see are they moved out of county, so changing of residence, no longer medically necessary or eligible.
Or managed care.
Correct, or loss of Medicaid.
So we're gonna break those out because we looked at other, because we looked at it. And I'm looking at changing the termination dropped out to discontinued care. Dropped out has like a negative connotation to it. Dropped out, they're a dropout, right? They discontinued care by choice. And then there's reasons for that. Now we have drilled down every single data here. There's tables and tables of who they are, when they drop out, the stated reason if we know. So we can do a qualitative analysis of the reasons that we'll start to put together and summarize. These are the general categories, but we have all of the detailed data.
Would it be fair to say dropped out means voluntarily left?
Yeah, discontinued. Yeah. They weren't forced out. They weren't. Yeah. Now there is, under the other standpoint, there's a managed care function that I talked to Olivia about that we want to look in, because if someone no longer meets our criteria for a service under the managed care guidelines, they're no longer eligible. And so they might have been said, you're no longer eligible. And that's not going to be in your severe, like our ACT folks or my lifetime disorder group. It may be people that are no longer eligible from one level of care to another, and they decided to go somewhere else to get therapy, things like that. So there's a lot of nuancing we're still doing with this. That once we looked at it, we were able to kind of, oh yeah, we better answer that question.
I'm just
Yeah.
looking at like health home has categories as far as like why people have left also. I mean, they've got administrative reasons, they moved, beneficiaries unresponsive, this is their language, deceased, voluntary disenrollment, placed in hospice, no Medicaid change in settings.
Yeah.
And completion of services.
Yeah, we can look at that and see how that lines up with our other categories of these. But what was it, Anna, earlier today, Joel from Substance Use said, hey, our discharge reason is that we do a lot of services in the jail and they get freed. So the service stopped. I'm like, yeah, so their biggest reason is freedom. Right. But that's we also incarcerated or released by the courts, or, you know, we got some nuancing to do because it was a positive thing, not we're not serving them because they're no longer in jail. And they may not be an Ottawa County resident. Remember, we serve everybody in the jail. And they may get there and, you know, leave and they're going somewhere else for care. But he wanted me to bring that up today. He was concerned that people would think that, yeah, they're free. It's a good thing.
The question on the death category, is that medically involved, or could it also be self-inflicted?
All forms.
Yeah, that the self-inflicted would be an important category to understand.
Okay. And you see what I was talking about the percentage, substantially completed treatment plan by percentage. I think it's 10%. So if you go to any private practice around here and you say, when are people discharged? And they said, well, only 10% of the folks that ever come to me actually accomplished the goals we did. You'd be like, well, wait a minute.
Right.
Right. And so that's one of those things I want to make clear, that we're constantly looking at that. But you know, it's who we serve. It's a whole different narrative, and we're distinctive. And by the way, it costs more, much more. We're not doing 10 sessions and you accomplish your 3 coping skills and you're out. You heard, it wasn't by accident I asked for the ACT presentation to be done the same time as this information coming out. And Dr. Luber's too. It's to highlight the same narratives.
Well,
Are you
Dr.
liking the way
Verschuren, can I make a quick comment on this?
Yes, go ahead, Doc.
So some years ago, as you may recall, I kind of have a bit of an issue with what I call categorical outcomes, like discharge type outcomes, because I think they look more negative than the reality. So in Ottawa, many years ago, I took the same group of people in your kids program and we examined their CAFAS scores over time all the way until completion. So of those, I think it was something like, and this was some time ago, 80% plus had a positive experience upon discharge. We took those same people and we looked at their categorical discharge, and it was the opposite. It mostly looked like it was negative. So my point is that I think sometimes having like a scale that has a gradation of progress over time to examine the gains that people are making, I can pretty much guarantee you that you're going to see positive outcomes over time.
Yeah.
Whereas a categorical discharge like this kind of forces you into like categories that I think don't look as good as the true outcomes that you're achieving.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, and thanks, Doc. And for this is more like, here's where we're moving with it to get to a place like the access stuff that we're telling both sides of the story that will eventually lead to community facing and board access in a different level to all of this to do what you want with distinct summaries by me. So eventually what you might see is a community dashboard and a website that says discharges. And whatever period that we want to summarize with a summary, I'll have like a summary of it in a narrative form next to it. So what you're looking at is how much da 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 da, and people can look at it. So they can have access to what I'm calling their mental health data. These are the people's data that we need to make sure. But I also think it's validating to our staff to understand that we're understanding the nature of the work they do. Because if we're judged based on the completion of treatment plan goals, hearing what you've heard all this afternoon, you're like, well, that's only like 1/9 of the story. And that's the message we want to keep sending. And down your right, categorical data forces you in buckets.
Yep.
It doesn't reflect change.
Well, and I got to tell you one story about how tough the work is for some of these guys when you're talking about, you know, when people don't want to come into treatment. I remember when I worked in the jails and I did assessments and I had people who had mental illness where I could put them in to, you know, a community mental health program. And I'm like, I can get you housing and we can get you case management and, you know, really put some things together for you. And I remember I had this guy say, well, why would I want to do that when I already live under a $5 million bridge? And and so it took me off, you know, I'm like, okay. So then it kind of reminded me of my training, like, okay, just, you know, walk alongside, let them know you're here when they're ready. But this particular gentleman wanted nothing to do with being part of a system of care like ours. So all you can do is keep reaching out and letting them know you're there when they're ready. But he was, I mean, looked me straight in the eye and said that.
Yeah, I got a bridge.
$5 million bridge, thank you.
Any other things you want to highlight on this before we move on?
The one thing that I was going to say in response to the categories is I totally agree. The other point, though, is that this is what the state sees.
Right.
Because these are all programmed into ADO to be directly translated automatically into the end of BH10 episodes.
Right.
So I totally agree that this is only a starting point, but I also think it is worthwhile to keep it as a starting point because we need to also realize what the state sees.
That's right.
Because we can't change these categories at all.
Right.
but we can further explain them and.
Yeah, and talk about dropout is really discontinuing and things like that. Yeah.
Is dropout the phrase that the
Yeah.
state uses? Oh, okay.
So that's why.
I keep thinking of beautiful dropout from Greece.
I know.
Let me see.
Now I'm gonna think about that every
Yeah.
day.
School dropout. Good.
So, and then one other's tab with this is just continuing the story. You can kind of look at kind of like what they were talking about before, IVH and everything, looking at almost the survival analyses. You can look at it as far as length of service and length of stay and start diving into some of those. And this is kind of the direction starting to go with that. So it's looking at average length of service, and that's what this graph is showing. And just kind of highlighting, again, what Dr. Piers was saying about cost is that when people come into service, they tend to stay in service for a while.
Right.
As you can see, the majority are well above that 30-day mark, going well above a year or two.
Sure.
And the other thing you can also look at is for the people that discharge, how soon do they come back into service? Typically mental health concerns and everything, they're lifelong.
Sorry. That's for you, that's for you, Director Duff.
Yes.
Maybe.
And so this is just kind of starting the conversation. I don't want to get too much into this until we have a complete picture of all the discharges. Because again, with four discharges resulting in 30 days, they readmit. It's not really enough to draw a lot of conclusions from, but it's also just kind of highlighting the direction to kind of start taking.
You okay with this direction we're going?
I do have a question on the readmission. The 91 to 180 day time period appears to be the time where the largest group of people are readmitted. Can we tie that back to the left-hand chart? Were they people who were in the longest and then they readmitted, or were they people who were dismissed maybe too early?
Yeah.
Are you talking about this chart?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is what this is starting to go into. It's tying that readmission into their length of service. And so that's exactly the question, is to look at those discharges and see, is there a relationship between how long they were in service and how quickly they came back?
Yeah.
So exactly right.
Yeah. And then also people who we are directly responsible for monitoring versus the Healthy Michigan group.
That's for darn right. Yeah, we'll figure that out. But you actually got Olivia to say that's exactly the question. I have never got it.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Been
Yeah,
really
how many
good.
years you've been involved in the system, Tom?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you know,
Between the two of you, I tell you, we're gonna have
Very
the best
helpful.
system in the history of the world measuring it.
Okay, and
Thank you, Olivia.
now we're gonna talk about the authority transition update.
Yeah, that's gonna be for the full board. I just like to include it in PQI as well, so you kind of get a general sense of it. But I intend to have more information at our full board meeting in 2 weeks on the transition, so I wasn't intending to spend much time on it. The big thing right now is we're working on the service agreement with the county, the details of that, and more importantly, you'll hear this in Finance Committee coming up, the promissory note with the county of how much money help us with our cash flow. Right now, the biggest advantage of being part of the county as a county department is cash flow. So the county pays the bills until we get the revenue. So we're working out an agreement, and we will be the only authority in the state of Michigan that has it, so I'm proud of it, where the county's agreeing to maintain a promissory note, our cash flow for us. And we're just figuring out the amount. 5 million, 10 million, what is it going to be?
Go for 20.
Right. But we'll have a nice authority county partnership in that way, and the county's commitment not to do harm to the CMH authority once we separate. And that's a huge thing. So our attorney's looking at it, we're getting the details, but I intend to do a much more robust where we're at with the authority status with you, and then I'll intend to do an all staff meeting on where we're at. That we haven't done one of those in a while. So we're getting closer. You know,
As it speaks to the all staff meeting, obviously, I'm always interested in how staff's doing.
Yeah.
Right. I know that one of the top three things that people raised during our transition sessions was, how do we not get a talent drain? How do we keep people together? And I just got tripped up by that retirement. Yeah, this week. I'm going like, huh.
Our compliance.
Yeah. And I go like, well, is there a way that we can kind of measure some of that stuff going forward?
Yeah, we do exit interviews and we kind of
You do.
figure out.
Okay.
Anna came back from vacation and we had another person, one of our nurses. She's moving on. And it's just good. Why? Let's get to the bottom of this, right?
Yeah.
And that's true, but in terms of retention, it's people feeling continuity. And so we'll be able to give some updates on healthcare, where we're at with that, and things that are important to our employees in the transition. How much is my life going to change?
Sure.
It's taken a while, longer than Ann and I would have liked, to get to some of the nitty gritty. Because when you're actually doing it and you're relying on other people to get information, there can be a delay.
Yep.
But we'll have enough at the full board meeting to take. And what I gave you was the presentation that the deputy administrator gave to the county commissioners. Because if they do a presentation, I want you to have it as soon as possible. And that's what that is. It's actually his particular update. And I intend to augment it for our next board meeting and add some pieces to it.
Good.
So that's what that is.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just continue to ask about those things as we move forward.
No.
I don't feel comfortable going to staff members and saying, how you doing with all this? I'd rather just give sort of overall data and stuff like that.
Yeah, but
Good. All right, so no more on that, and we'll move to new business. Well, is there any old business? First of all, that anyone wants to bring? No. Okay, we'll move to new business. The current managed dashboards.
yeah, so what I want to do with this is show you, there's a list. What attachment number is that, so I can get to it? Let's see. Oh, here it is. So my intent is not to go through this list and say, do you want this or do you want that? What I wanted to do is, as we're constructing all of the different data points, staff put together, Olivia put together, and other folks put together this table of some of the essential things that we already measure. And then I highlighted the ones I know for sure I'm going to want us to present in either finance committee or here. And so the ask for the committee is to review this table, and without showing you each one saying this is the exact thing it's doing, your initial ask is to go through and just literally in between our next time, like highlight the ones want to know more about that, or already kind of know more about that, so we can start targeting specific reviews of the multiple dashboards and data elements we don't show you. And this isn't even all of them. This is probably like a third of what we look at. But I don't think that the general public or even some members of the board realize how many different data points we're looking at. And so this wasn't today to say, here's the list. It's to say, here is a basic table that identifies our current dashboards, most of them.
Mhm.
And then what I'm wanting is in between this meeting and the next, just to kind of read the description, say, yeah, I want to know more about that one, or this one might be important for me to understand more, because we're trying to pick which ones are going to elevate to a dashboard that you have access to, but not all of them. I mean, there might be a couple members that look at all of them. I won't say their names, but but we're already looking at access. We're already looking at crisis. We're already doing some of this stuff. So I wanted to include this today because we have this on our radar. And my ask is just take a look at them. We can, and then highlight the ones you want to learn more about. If it's all of them, then we'll figure out a way to do that in a way that might, I don't know, Olivia, maybe we sit down and we make a video for each one or something, like, and we can just send it to you. You want to know more about the BH-TEDS? Everything you want to know about BH-TEDS dashboard, here it is, Because eventually you're going to have things like that as we get new members of the board on and other folks to know what these things are. And to know that your hired staff are doing all of this.
Yep.
So that's why I put them in there. Not any action on it today, but to go through and I already put things in yellow that I think would be important for a dashboard that board members have access to. Good.
And it's just fun to say members.
Members, yeah, they're trying to get rid of the members. You know, the private sector doesn't like members and natives. We actually have to do stuff in timeframes and they don't.
Okay.
Can you get rid of the allow thing on the thing again? The smart device is still being silly.
Okay, like we put a lot of work into this,
Yeah.
aligning CMH funding with consumer needs.
Yeah, and so, look, what do you have? You have a attachment F is a little
Right.
summary of the 10-page other document that I wrote. Okay. And so what's the point of this? I'll tell you what my intentionality of this is. And it's being reviewed by Neil Marchant, our legal counsel, and other folks. Because I am contending in my analysis, and I did check every one of those references. This is not a throw it in Copilot, see what it says.
Sure.
Copilot helps me with the structure of the format, the document, which I appreciate, but I validate all the references and double check them, which takes a long time. What I am basically saying this, that the current model of funding distribution in the LRE that's solely and strictly based on the amount of Medicaid lives is not in compliance with person-centered planning, home and community-based standards, and several federal statutes. And I'm making the case that at a minimum, there needs to be an examination if that point is true, and for the region to do an analysis of what would a needs-based funding methodology look like, knowing that the state of Michigan has a hybrid already. The state of Michigan takes the number of Medicaid lives when it's giving money to the regions, and it has several regional modifiers and other kind of like needs-based measures that they use to calculate the cost of stuff. And based on that, they give different allocation numbers or amounts to different regions. The problem we have is once the state's done that, it's of ill effect or doesn't even impact how we do the money. So let's just say that the state says, you know, we noticed for a certain service that your region has more of these, so therefore we have to account for more expenditures there. It comes to the region and we don't go, I wonder within our region if Ottawa has more of those services, the state said you should get more for to do. It just simply gets wiped out and it's a basic math problem. You have 200 people, we divide the amount of money the state gives us by that and there's your money. What I'm saying is that there are certain categories that the state haven't considered yet. Enhanced health and services, people in specialized residential services with high needs cost. This group has not been part of any state effort to validate the true cost of them, even though they've done it in other areas, if this makes sense, right? So what I'm saying is, dear regional entity, I don't think it's legal the way we're doing.
Well, you have two problems. One is the regional modifiers is voodoo science.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an open, transparent process.
That's true.
With identified statistical data to back it up. For example, Detroit, oh, well, you're
Yes.
more costly to deliver services there, so we'll give you an extra 10% or whatever. The other part of it is our LRE has chosen to use the per member per month, which cuts the legs out from under the equitable distribution based on the people.
It voids it out.
Right. Are we the only LRE that does that?
No.
No.
Is it a problem? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what I'm articulating is, you know, I've been on this needs-based thing. I'm calling for a hybrid. No one has defined what need is yet, to be blunt. So the major obstacle in a needs-based model philosophy is how you define need.
And how do you assess for it?
Right. Correct. We used to have such measures, and I was instrumental in getting one removed, silly me. But the problem is that it's my belief that we're in violation as a region of home and community-based standards, person-centered planning, and other central federal regulations that say you must develop a needs-based methodology of distributing funds. And the state has addressed that with the Fed saying, we're doing it. And they allow one to contract with the regions to say, well, have at it. And I'm making the case. Now, we have regional representation here, and we've already made the case that we'd like an analysis done. They've agreed to do it.
Right.
So I used the other document, which if you read it and follow it, like, good God, Bashir's is writing and academic. This was done to demonstrate that this isn't just something that I'm conjuring up in my head. There are real concerns that I have that we have the inability to meet the needs of people in Ottawa County based on a flawed funding model. Now, the region legitimately says, well, it's not like we have extra money we can hand out. It's not like the pie is bigger. And I'm going, yes, I get that. Take this information and please go to the state and ask the same question. Because I've tried to approach the state independently. Dr. Lubers knows my method, go above to the next slide. And I got my hand slapped and reminded by the state, you know, our contract for Medicaid is with the regional entity. It's not with you, Ottawa County CMH. So you must start there. And that's what I'm doing. And I keep copying the state so they know what I'm doing. They have a copy of this. They're very interested in it because in the first version of it, I mentioned the mental health framework and how the mental health framework is an attempt in some way to move to a needs-based model. It really is. And now it could be flawed in other areas, but they like that part of it. So my point in showing you as a committee is that this one page is really what I'm trying to do there, is to say, I think there's a bigger problem and I need somebody to answer it. And if the answer is, by the way, you're wrong, Dr. Bashir, stay within your allocation, or we have no intention to do A, B, and C, because you're just wrong. I need that answer too.
It needs to be overt.
Yeah, and because then I'm able to say, then by what standard do I limit care?
Right.
Because you just told me it's not needs-based. You just told me it's per capita funding cap-based. So you tell me who in the ACT team I'm supposed to discharge, right? And that's the result of strong standards. And we have determined in Ottawa, and we have been communicating this for over a year, that unless the region is going to develop clear guidelines that are fully enforceable and consistent across the region, then there's no ability for us to limit stuff based on the current model. In fact, when we've tried to do it, we've lost an appeal every time. Our COO will tell you, she's had to do if not all of them, the majority of the appeals, I believe, Anna, at the regional level and beyond. You've even had to testify. And even when we make the case, we're still told, no, they can have it because there isn't a uniform X this way or that way. That's just your opinion, Ottawa.
Mm-hmm.
So this document was an attempt to illustrate the other one and to help you understand what the strategy is for me, is to call the question and get an answer one way or another, because we have to lead regardless of what the answer is. So I don't have any fantasy that you write this and all of a sudden they go, here's $5 million back to you. They don't have it, but it is, what is the region's obligation to advocate for it? And they first have to agree that it's a problem. And that's what we've been doing, a series of communication. So that's what that is. And then and if you did read the other document, that it's quite lengthy. I apologize.
Did you also analyze the state plan to see, Michigan went to the feds and say, give us a waiver. Here's our state plan on how we're going to do it.
Yes.
And that's part of what you've referred here to in terms of the philosophy of capitated management.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And so it looks at all of those factors, but it's just simply, how could you be person-centered without being needs-based? You're person-centered up to a cost. Of Medicaid manuals clearly says you cannot base the authorization of services or the determination of services on cost. You cannot limit based on costs. You cannot limit based on your budget size. It literally says it in black and white in the Medicaid provider manual. So the state's saying, well, we've already determined how much a region needs. That's how we're dealing with that. And then the region takes that and says, here's your portion of it. And I'm saying the state hasn't moved far enough. They have not met that other group. The enhanced health and safety group, our 17 people that cost us $5.2 million, is not baked into their assumptions. And it just needs to be. Our folks are not numbers and they're not outliers in this group. That's the campaign, more than numbers. We're not just Medicaid lives, and we actually have real needs that we're supposed to address, right? And they're not outliers. If they were outliers, meaning we're just authorizing too much for this group and it's really a managed care issue, we would have seen that in the statistical analysis that we used with IBH. We used 2 specific statistical analysis methodologies that demonstrated beyond a shadow of a doubt that these are distinct populations and not outliers. And that's why I did it that way. Because if that wasn't the case, then I would have a leg to stand on in terms of that. It'd be like, well, you just given too much or historically have too much. That is not the case in Ottawa County. Okay. And this helps us get there. So that's what it is. I mean, there's a lot there, but
Well done.
yeah.
Hopefully it gets us out of neutral.
Did you get feedback from CMHA on this?
Yes, they like it very much so. They're in transition with Bob Sheehan leaving and Alan there and Dave Lowe. I asked them to send this out to the larger group. They haven't yet. I intend to do it. Amanda just created me an email list that I can do
Okay,
that.
good. Yeah, I guess I was wondering about that. So, I mean, like you're saying, there's no new monies. So what it means is a redistribution of funds, and not only within the region, but around the state potentially is what
correct.
you're hoping for.
Yeah.
So there's always winners and losers with that then, right?
That's correct.
So, and if we're talking, it's probably Southeast Michigan, Oakland County, and those counties over there that may be receiving more funds than, so that redistribution, but they're politically,
Yeah. My belief
there's
is
a lot of support politically. over there.
is everybody just to do the analysis. There's always winners and losers, but I'll tell you who should not be the loser is the consumer.
Right.
And so for me, if I end up getting less money in some areas and more money somewhere, I can live with that. I just want a level playing field and things to be based on agreed upon definitions of need, which we're far from that. So I understand this is the work that has to be done because the system is not sustainable for any of us. I mean, the majority, there's a huge percentage of CMHs in a deficit. Why is
I'm not saying, I'm not opposed to it. I'm just saying.
No,
these
you're
are
giving
some
me
of
the
areas
realities.
That,
And I keep coming back to the consumer. Yeah, tell me I'm doing it wrong. I'll happy to change it. I'm not that entitled. You say this is wrong. Great. Now what?
Well, there's another draconian solution to propose. Tell us where we're supposed to ship our consumers to get the services that they're entitled to.
Yeah. So that's what this issue is. And I wanted to, make sure you had the information.
Okay, let's move on to attachment H. This is your communication
On emergency.
on emergencies
Yeah.
from Chris
So-
Morningstar.
This is interesting. This is Paul sent me a whole bunch of emails after this too. So the state had to clarify for some reason that, and we're talking general fund now, we're not talking about the Medicaid population here. We're talking about CMH's, their contract with the state, not with the region. CMH's obligation to screen everybody and anybody that walks in a CMH access department or a crisis service. Now, that has been long standard forever. I can't remember, I don't know if you can, I can't remember this wasn't the case. But several CMHs had sent the department a clarification about, are we supposed to not only provide, but pay for these evaluations? And then the state sent back a letter, and I think I sent the email into it, they sent, that basically says, yeah, you have to do this. And then you can seek third-party reimbursement from folks to cover that cost, which doesn't happen unless you're doing more than a crisis service. So I simply responded to the state, and I thought you would like to know, that says, I hope you're doing well. Does the current general fund allocation methodology fully account for and adequately fund the statewide crisis intervention obligations outlined in the memo? And the answer is no. They haven't made changes to the formula of how we get general fund since 2014. So we have a broad obligation with general fund dollars to screen everybody, to be the safety net, but no one's done an evaluation if the amount of general fund we get actually covers that need. And so I'm just politely saying, could you send me, and I note this thing, and I really mean this. I want to note that Ottawa County is now the 7th largest county in Michigan with a population exceeding 300,000, yet CMHOC is not even in the top half of CMHSP general fund allocations statewide. Given our size, growth, and demand for crisis services, understanding how you're allocating the GF would be very helpful in this context, and any guidance that you can provide. So I'm saying, thanks for the clarification. We're already doing that. We're already, anybody that walks in, we're funding source blind, you get a crisis evaluation. You may even get stabilization services, regardless if you're in Medicaid or not, or have a health plan or not. But I'm saying to the state, thanks for the clarification. And by the way, this is yet again, I didn't write it this way, an unfunded mandate. We are the safety net, but I'll tell you, our general fund, if we didn't have millage and navigators in access or in crisis with millage and CCBHC funding, it'd be very difficult for us to meet this mandate. And some, as a large county, we're in the top 10. No one ever thought it. Who knew? We're like big county with small money. And so I'm just saying, thank you for the clarification. And this is what I'm asking you. Now, do I think I'm going to get a response? No. But it is a general fund contract issue. So when we have to sign our next general fund with the state, I will bring it up and say, can you tell me just how you're doing it? Because it hasn't been changed since 2014 on how the formula.
Does it matter, like when you're looking at total population, if we have more people that are insured, like I would imagine like Wayne County has like a really high GF population where we may not rise to that level, even though we're in the top 10, we may not be top 10 as far as like the GF population. Does that impact it or no?
It definitely has an impact of what happens, but someone with insurance comes in all the time. We get calls all the time. And unless we can say, go to the Pine Rest walk-in psychiatric clinic and they're coming here. But
isn't your point though about the GF population though? I mean, isn't
no,
that
my
the
point
biggest
is that this clarification from Kristen Morningstar was you are to serve anybody regardless of funding source, and especially GF.
Regardless of residency. So if
Yes.
somebody here on vacation comes in.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're a destination county.
Right. And I'll tell you, and so your point is true in one regard. Yes, that definitely is a major factor. The number of GF people are uninsured people.
Yep.
And let me remind this group that as soon as Medicaid, the new standards come in, people are going to be dropping off Healthy Michigan like flies.
Yep.
And they're not covered. We're getting no reimbursement. And so this was my way of saying, thank you for the clarification. Tell me how you're funding it.
Now, didn't they also refer to the fact that the county has to pick up some of the funding? So
Yeah, there's always a 10% general fund match.
Oh,
The count.
but
That's what they're
even,
talking.
even I got the impression it was beyond that.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
if we run out of GF money, that's up to the county to supplement. what we-
Yes, it has not been challenged yet
Mhm.
by any county, but
Yeah.
yes, theoretically. Hence, remember, should we become an authority? Will the county ever contribute to the operations? The answer was no. Right, but this suggests they must.
Yep.
So,
The other piece also is that there's no obligation of the insurance companies to reimburse for this
No.
either.
only if we
So-
decide to do ongoing services that they would provide.
You can reach out to them, say, hey, we provided this service and we'd like to receive reimbursement. They can say, yeah, okay, we're not gonna do it.
Yeah, and I will tell you, there's a lot of trending in that way, that we have. And I would just let you know, one of the phone calls I made today was to Pine Rest. I don't care if you're listening. Pine Rest, because in the last 2 weeks, we've gotten 5 people that the Holland Pine Rest folks say we no longer take Medicaid Healthy Michigan people for outpatient, even though they have a contract with Priority Health to do so, and sending them to us. And so I sent a formal email to the Director of Outpatient Services on vacation, but I talked to some other people saying, did you have a policy change? Because what's going to happen as the mental health framework thing kicks in, people, the health plan providers of behavioral health are going to say, I no longer take Medicaid as an individual provider, and they're going to come to us with no provider. And a lot of it's reimbursement rate, but not wanting to do new tools. And so we're anticipating an increase of people dropping from Medicaid to general fund and crisis increasing in this county. And so hence why I was putting that together. I'm trying to stay out in front of some of these issues, but I mean, I'm sure they're not out there going, oh, gee, Dr. Bashir sent another email, we got to respond right away. But I'm building the case that I'm informing them so that when it gets to a critical mass, that I have a paper trail and discussions of trying to inform them of the issue and in willingness to engage to resolve it. So that's on
Well,
that one.
thank you for that work. Appreciate it. Is there anybody online, Amanda? For public comments? No one with their hand raised. Okay. All right. Again, in fact, I would like to adjourn the meeting and thank everybody for their attendance.